Hello, good evening everyone. As Geri mentioned, my name is Geri Minelli from Women in Music. I'm going to take a seat because I'm feeling a bit lazy and a bit shy. So I take this as the part where I'm supposed to tell you about what it is that I do. I'm head of coordinations and also the creative founder for Women in Music. We're an organisation that does musical events and activities. We also run the painted now hand. We also run the Women in Music Festival for Birmingham. We run Uniting the Nations, which is a cultural awareness programme. Birmingham Women's Choir, and general other things, Minelli sings, and various other programmes. It's a case of please fire questions, ask me, and I can answer them for you, and then maybe elaborate on certain subjects that we may. Initially, I started Women in Music. We'll go initially with the festival, because it's the festival that's 10 years old this year, and not so much the festival in itself, but the organisation of Women in Music. As a performer, I wanted to celebrate International Women's Day, for those of you who know about it, on the 8th of March. And the only way I knew how to do it was in a musical format. Because I'd gone out and done promotions with bands, managed bands, been an artist, etc., sat in the offices doing all the behind the scenes work as well. It seemed like the only way to do it was to try and create an event where I felt that I could express all of my skills and talents, and then offer a platform for other people of the same ilk to be able to jump on also. There were no other women in music organisations around locally where I could kind of like get involved with, and the only one that I knew about only really catered for composers and performers, so it didn't really open up the doors and the avenues for the other areas of the industry where, as we now know, women want to excel in. So that's kind of where I started with the organisation, and having done so much musically stage-wise, it was a great opportunity to give the platform to other performers who were coming up and trying to be seen. Unless you're normally signed to a massive record company, you've got a great big mechanical wheel behind you, you don't stand a chance. And I was one of those people who didn't have a great big mechanical wheel. And maybe if I'd spent the last 10 years worrying about my own professionalism on the stage and trying to be an artist, I'd probably be a lot more successful, but it just felt comfortable for me to sit behind the desk and try and do what I could for others. So here I am, still sitting behind the desk, trying to do what I can. I wouldn't so much say women in Birmingham, I'd probably say just women in general. I know there's a couple of newcomers that are coming up now from Birmingham who I've kind of like heard on the radio recently. So their successes are growing. I think it's knowing, as we mentioned when we were talking earlier, about having a clear direction, but also having the right people behind you. One of the reasons why Women in Music is out there and why I feel so strongly about it is we want to be able to open the doors where, ladies can go out and be producers and engineers, roadies, all those kind of areas where you will very rarely see a female, and if it is, there's a challenge that is faced. I know from my own personal challenges and having to face people, one, you have to look at the fact that you're a female, so that's like the first thing. Second, if you're of a younger age, they look at you to say, well, there's ageism either whether you're younger or older, because it's like, well, you haven't earned your stripes, and then when you have, it's like, well, you're a bit too old, so you can't win. Then if you've got any kind of sense of colour issue, then you have to deal with that as well. And then, it's just endless. But if you truly believe in what you're doing, you can get through sort of doors that are ajar. Females, we just need other stepping stones to be able to help us along the way. This is going back to your question. And it's finding the right people who don't want to see you, like I mentioned the other night, in a video with your, wearing bikini and hanging out and giving the booty call, all that kind of thing. There's more to it than that. It's just being able to have the confidence. That's another big issue. It's having someone who can hold your hand along the way, whether it's male or female, because Women in Music work with men as well. We have men who will work with us. So it's not that we're anti-men at all. It's not even a protest. It's a celebration. We want to celebrate the worth of what we're achieving as females. We have a lot to achieve. We're still striving, even 100 years down the line. It's a tough world out there, but we know it, If we can learn to manipulate it, it's the next thing. So, by all means, use your charms. Use what needs to get you there. But don't sell yourself. Everyone will have all ages on our stages, as long as they can make it up there. Because as an artist, as any creative person, I think we're all creative here in this room, there's no doubt about that. Once it's in your blood, it's in your blood, and it's hard to shake it off. And as mentioned, if you get it in the commercial world where you get past a certain age and you can't be on it at this stage, then there's so many females out there, and men too, who get overlooked because how old they are. Also, genres, we'll work with anyone. We have, with the Women in Music Festival, we'll have various acts. We'll have dances, you could be a female engineer, we'll take 3 minutes footage and we'll stick you up there and we'll promote the fact that that's what you do, but you're still working in the music industry. So it's not always about front of stage for us. We want to throw the limelight on people who are working behind the scene, or behind the scenes. So we open the doors for everyone. That's probably what makes us a little bit different to most general festivals, because they just tend to focus a lot on the people who are at the front of the stage. But we open our doors and try and throw the limelight to various others. DJs included. And I only can express these things from experience. I went to one of our major festivals that were held here in Birmingham. They spent thousands. They had major backing, major profiling. They had a panel on the stage. And we were out there expressing the fact that we needed support for the next event. So I go along, being my little young self, of course. And I go and say, trying to talk to these panel people. And one of the first things that came out of his mouth, which resonated with me to this day, is, "Oh, I think women belong in the kitchen." What? He's a panel attendee at this major music event, and it's like, that's what's coming out of his mouth. And that was only about 5-6 years ago, if that. Actually, probably a little bit longer. But it was just quite shocking. So we do need changes, and you're going to get it. We have our challenges. So many kind of speaking from experience, and also that's only one of many experiences. But that one's the one that resonates. So, ladies, if you have your dreams, just go for them. Just make them happen. We know that the ones that are in the limelight, the Beyoncés who are going out there, are really making a call for the girls, isn't she? So she's powerful. She's amazing. But then we have, on the other hand, someone else who's amazing. Maybe we don't respect them as much, Rihanna. But she is amazing, and she's definitely got a lot of influence in what she does. And it's just how you use your skills. So you have two amazing women out there, but they almost kind of stand for different things, if you know what I mean. Then you've got the Annie Lennoxes, who've been around for a long while. One of my issues is, where are the female musical stalwarts? Where are we? Have the Simon Cowells that are out there, the Simon Fullers that are out there, the Pete Aikens, the Stock Aitken and Waterman people, they're all out there. Where are the female ones? And that's what I find kind of really disappointing here in 2013, is that we don't have a female role to look up to. When we say music, we don't think that's someone behind the scenes who's really making some noise. We have great songwriters, Diane Warren, and people like that, Carole Kings, all those are out there. And also a lot of them are hidden away. They're all, over at the other side of the water. Where's the ones from over here in Britain? As a festival, we were fortunate enough to now have been recognised by the Secretary of State and for Culture and Sport, and she's also the Minister for Women. So maybe we can start to create some change and move the planes a little. But we can only do it with help, and it's not going to happen overnight. But yeah, thank you for that. So I thought that was quite important. Yeah. Can I sing?
Hi, my name's Amrita. I'm currently the only coach that I know that wants to coach people towards their own success through professional development as artists, whether they're musicians or painters or writers. I'm currently developing my workshops. I'm ready to deliver as well. and they're all around professional development. It's a very unique setup. I also offer one-to-one coaching. I think probably the best way this can develop is if you ask me questions, because it's such a huge area and not many people know about personal development or professional development in the language that I would speak about it in. So just fire away. Yeah, that's interesting. A lot of musicians now want to get paid for their work. So I can definitely help with that. I think a lot of that is to do with how they're defining their own success. Yes, it's important to get paid, but what do you want to be paid for? Do you want to be paid for being a diva? Do you want to be paid for doing acoustic gigs, doing workshops, writing songs for other people? It's such a grey area for a lot of artists, whether you're a musician or not. I think it's really important to define that in very clear terms, and I can help you do that. And the way that you do that is you work with me. Coaching is a partnership. I would work with you. We would set an inspirational goal, and then I would anticipate, well, we would both anticipate barriers that may be on the way, and you map out a journey towards your success, whatever you define that to be. I don't take responsibility for the outcome. It's a partnership. I think that if you set a goal that's realistic, I think you can get there. I don't really doubt. I mean, I have over 98% chance of success with all of my clients. I've got homeless people houses, and I've helped people get jobs. I've helped somebody who thought they couldn't be a writer be a writer. So I think the only limit is what you set yourself. I think people will pay for music, and they should pay for music. And I think if people have enough self-belief, there's a whole lot. You see, we're in a culture now where being a musician or being an artist is not valued, and expressing the deepest part of yourself is not valued. And if you're always told by your friends and family that that is not something you should be paid for, then you have to constantly challenge that. It's like if you're always told you haven't had a good singing voice, then you're never going to think you have a good singing voice unless you consistently challenge that. And this is where coaching comes in, because coaching, often it's married up with NLP or CBT, which are both ways to wear new neural pathways in your head. So it's not only an external thing, it's an internal thing, and then you bring in the whole law of attraction thing. So I can talk about this for ages, but the first thing is to change your thinking. Honestly, I think it came about as a thing that I was struggling with. I think everybody is creative. I don't think you're chosen to be an artist and everybody has this special talent. I think everybody can be creative. And when you start to unlock that and express yourself honestly, it's very empowering, and you kind of see how it has a ripple effect. So I think it's really important, especially now that everything's going tits up, that everybody kind of unlocks their personal potential. I mean, this is kind of the peak of a very long line of ways of coaching for me. I've been a mentor, I've coached homeless people, and now I feel like I'm evolving my coaching up the scale. I don't know if I'll ever go into corporate businesses, but right now I want to be coaching creators, which is the name of my business. I don't think in terms of the goals it's different. I think men are a lot more reticent in talking about their barriers to a woman, but I don't really see any difference there. I'm quite good. For me, I know that my strength is that I'm quite easy to talk to. So personally, no, I haven't seen any difference. No. I think it's all what we're encouraged to do socially. I mean, women, it's okay to be, to talk about your feelings of weakness if you're a woman, but I think it's really difficult for a man to do that in whatever, I don't know, I can't think of one time, unless they've got a girlfriend or they've got a really good mate. I can't imagine a man doing that very easily in this culture. I know that I've got a lot of men to open up about how they're feeling, and I think it's really difficult for them to be able to speak like that as to why they didn't complete the home action, or why they don't feel they're worthy of being paid so much, or why they're not worthy of getting a flat, or or creating this amazing piece of art that they've been dreaming of. I just think it's more difficult for them to admit that they have a barrier there. But that's just in my experience.
Hi. Well, I'm used to being behind decks rather than on stage with a big light on me, so this is kind of new to me. But yeah, I guess I'll just talk about Atta and why I started it up and how it started. Back in like 2009, I think I'd just gone through a really horrible breakup and generally feeling quite down on myself and not feeling that good about what I was doing in a horrible job. And one day I was like walking home from work and I had this song like just stuck in my head. And I was like, what is this song? And I emailed my friend and I said, it goes something like, na, na, na. I couldn't even remember how it went. And somehow she just knew straight away. And she's like, oh, that's La Tigre. I was like, wow, I really love that song. And I'd had for quite a long time, this feeling of like, whenever I go out to a club night or like I'm really into like indie music, like indie discos, there was just like, they weren't playing the music that I was into. Like I'm into Yeah Yeah Yeahs and PJ Harvey and the Slits and X-Ray Specs and all this kind of music, and you'd go along to like Snobs or something and they just play the Smiths, and if you're really lucky you heard a Blondie song. And like I love Blondie, but the women have done so much more in music in the last few decades than just Blondie. So yeah, that was the idea behind me. It was like, well, I really want to go to this club night, it doesn't exist. And I started talking to a few people in Birmingham, and I'd only just moved here as well. And I'd been to a club night up in Leeds called Suck My Left One, which is a Bikini Kill reference. And I was like, well, why isn't there anything like that in Birmingham? And I met this guy who'd put on one night, he's now my housemate, and he'd put on all female vocalists. I was like, whoa, like that's kind of what I want to do. And so we kind of started hanging out together and saying like, well, let's start this, let's have a go, let's start contacting venues and just finding out. So I kind of, and I started like putting together a little zine. And at first I was really scared that there was going to be some kind of backlash saying like, you're really sexist because you're only putting on female vocalists. And that was kind of my first zine. I wrote this massive kind of defensive thing justifying why I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And after putting on that first night, like I realized that I didn't really need to justify it anymore. Like people were quite down with it, and I think like the most amount of people we've had turning up to our night was like, it was around Christmas time, and we had 140 people turn up in one night, and I was just like, okay, like people actually like this, people want this, that's like, okay. And yet still 3 years on, every time we put on a club night, for the first hour, I'm like, no one's going to turn up. But they do. And the idea was to kind of just give a bit of a voice to people as well, and kind of mimicking, I guess at first I thought it was mimicking, but I realised it's kind of a carrying on of the Riot Girl movement. Basically, Riot Girl, if you don't know, was this kind of 90s movement, really, is where it started in America. And it was kind of this response to this very male-dominated punk scene.